Hello, I'm Mike Connolly from the Maine Irish Heritage Center, and today is August 25th, 2025, and I'm here today in the studio of the Portland Media Center along with Kevin Battle. And we're going to be doing an interview today of interest to people of Irish background and of general background as well. Kevin, hello.
Hello, good. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Well, it's very
Glad
good
to be here.
It's very good to see you. I have a tricky question for you at first. Are you from away?
I'm not from away. I'm from far away. That's the way I usually say. I was actually born in the Sean Ross Abbey in Rosscray, Tipperary, Ireland. I was taken from my mother when I was 2 and put up for adoption, and adopted to the Battle family when I was 2 years old. In that time, they're both from Ireland. At that time, they were living in Brooklyn, New York. And it is the Coast Guard that sent me to Maine. I came up here in 1980. Shortly after getting here, I made up my mind I'm not staying in this state. I don't like the cold weather. And you can see how that worked out. Like I say, they warned us about the South Portland girls, and I raised my hand and asked which way South Portland. 2 weeks later, I met a girl from South Portland who really wanted nothing to do with me. And we're talking with some other people at the table and stuff. And at one point, I asked her where she was from. She told me she was from South Portland, and I got very flamboyant about, oh, they warned us about you South Portland girls. And she got mad, and she's been mad at me now going on 44 years.
And you have somehow survived the cold weather as well.
Yeah, kind of, yep, like it's adapted, overcame.
Kevin, we're going to do things a little backward today. We're going to come back later on to the origin story of you, because I think that's what many, many people are going to be interested in hearing. But I'd like to start with your arrival in Portland and your experiences in the Coast Guard. I'm going to go from the Coast Guard to South Portland Police, to the Maine Legislature, and then eventually on to Harbormaster. And if I've missed anything in between, you can fill me in. But let's start with your early arrival and your memories of that.
Yeah, I tried college. I majored in Party 101, 102, 103, got a lot of bills. That didn't work out for me, so I've always wanted to be a police officer from the time I was about 2 years old. In fact, the earliest remembrance I have of wanting to be a police officer when I was about 2 or 3. I'm with my mother, and we're in Brooklyn, New York, and we're crossing the street, and this car stops suddenly in front of us. And it looks different than all the other cars. As a kid, that's all I know. It just looks different than all the other cars. And the driver yells out the window, "Yo, lady, up on a sidewalk with a kid." And my mother quickly jumps up, on the sidewalk and pulls me up on the sidewalk. And the car drives off, and I was like, "Wow, who's that?" And she said, "That's the policeman. You got to do what he tells you." Well, right then and there, I knew I wanted to be a policeman, because my dad couldn't tell my mom what to do, but he could.
Have you ever had a chance to use that line, "Yo, lady"?
No, I might have a few times, I guess, depending upon what was going on.
Now, how old were you when you entered the Coast Guard?
Oh, I think I was 21.
And you had a natural interest in that, or what attracted you?
Well, I went into the Coast Guard because it was search and rescue and law enforcement. Like I said, I wanted to get on a police department, but back then there was really nobody hiring, and I hadn't quite turned 21 yet, so there was little to no chance. Like I said, I tried college. That didn't work out for me. So. I was part of what they used to call North Jersey Rangers, which was part of the 4-H group. And we used to walk part of the Appalachian Trail by Delaware Water Gap. And basically, a group of volunteers, you'd go along, and if there was somebody needed assistance, you'd give them assistance. And we actually had an old radio, which was like the size of a backpack with us. And like I said, things weren't working out for me in college, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do, and on my way up there, I get stuck behind this truck in traffic, and in the back is a big advertisement for the Coast Guard. When I pull into the parking lot where we're going to go, the car I pull up behind has a big bumper sticker on it about the Coast Guard. You know, and then we end up getting a call for a guy with chest pains by Fire Tower number 4, I think it was. And we find him, and our train, we had practiced with the National Guard a few times, so this was going to be an air rescue off the side of the mountain, and this ought to be cool. And shortly after that, we're told that the National Guard helicopter is down for service, so they're not available. And so we pack up everything and realize, okay, we got to start hoofing here, and got quite the walk. And then shortly afterwards, they call back and say, we have made arrangements for a helicopter, and it should be there, I think it was like 10, 15 minutes. So we got the patient ready again to transfer him over into a lift. And then over the trees comes a Coast Guard helicopter and picks this guy up. I go back, we drop, you know, they take him, we work our way back to where the vehicles are parked, and as we get down to the parking lot, there's a tractor trailer going by. Might have been the same one from earlier, but it has Coast Guard written on the side. And I looked up and said, okay, I can take the hint. And the next day I went down and talked to a recruiter, took a test, and away I went, one thing after another.
Sounds to me, Kevin, that the Coast Guard was yelling, "Yo, Kevin!"
Yeah.
And you answered the call. And you ended up in the base in South Portland?
Oh, I actually ended up on the Coast Guard cutter Duane.
Oh.
So I went to boot camp in Cape May. Then they sent me to Boston for a couple of months. What they call TAD, temporary assigned duty. And then there were a bunch of us that were new to the ship because they had just finished being on a cadet cruise. And because the Duane was a 1936 steamship. She had the steam boilers and good old number 33. So we came on board, and like I said, it was, I think it was like somewhere between 9 to 12 new, mostly rookies, seamen and non-rates that reported. So they had an introduction, you know, telling us some of the, the customs and terms up here in Maine. I learned to say "aya," you know, and heard about lobster and stuff like that. And the guy giving the speech was a guy named Ott, Chief Ott. And like I said, he had made the comment about watch out for the South Portland girls. And the reason he had said that is because he had married a South Portland girl. And I did, actually. When he had said that, I raised my hand and I asked him which way South Portland, and he told me to get the H out of there. And like I said, then I had, before that, I was actually scheduled to go down to Cape Canaveral, Florida, to be on a Coast Guard cutter down there. I got a prize billet. But due to manpower shortages, they rescheduled me and sent me up to Portland, you know, because I got called into the office and they said, we're sending you to Portland, Maine. Any questions? And as a seaman recruit, you're not supposed to ask questions. Well, I said, just one, if you don't mind, sir. And he kind of gave me a stern look and he was like, all right, Battle, I'll answer your question. What is it? I said, where's that? And he just chuckled and laughed, and he said, "Yeah, well, when you get to Boston, kid, keep going. You'll get there eventually." And I was like, "Oh, Northeast, okay, joy." And so I did about a year on the Duane. Like I said, I met my wife Kathy, and we got.
Her family name, Kevin?
She was Kathy Sawyer.
Sawyer.
Yep, she lived in South Portland. Her parents ran the Sawyer's Market there on Preble Street, right by Willard Beach. And as I said, she had recently left a relationship and wasn't interested in starting up a new one, and I was just a typical guy. And one thing led to another, and we hit it off, and I actually didn't lose her phone number. Had a heck of a time remembering her name to start with.
There was something about you that was persuasive, though, Kevin.
Oh, yes. Well, like I said, I got no problem talking. I have actually kissed a Blarney Stone, and
there you go.
And I was told what the locals do at nighttime, and I.
Now, did the Coast Guard people tell you that they could have sent you even further up to Jonesport?
Yeah,
Beals Island?
Yeah, I did, like I said, I did a year on the Duane, then I went out to Petaluma, California for training. And then from there I went to Block Island, Rhode Island. And back then Block Island had a summertime population, probably about 25,000. And then in the wintertime population was less than 200. So on Labor Day, you'd swear they were going to drop the bomb, because starting in the morning, the boards would start going up on the windows, and the ferry line is about a half-mile long, and by 6 p.m., the island is pretty much deserted.
You know, Kevin, people here in Portland, if they've been here long enough, like myself, they would recognize that, because the weather report used to be given Eastport to Block Island.
Eastport to Block Island.
And so after your few years in the Coast Guard, and you became familiar with Portland and South Portland, we can say.
Yeah.
How long did it take before you made the transition to the job that you were really hoping for in the police department?
Well, as I said, Kathy and we got married, and I was stationed in Gloucester, Massachusetts then, and my first son was born, and we had come up here to visit her family, and my father-in-law had the paper, and he handed me the paper, and it was an article about job opening posting for the South Portland Police Department, and I thought, oh, okay, let me do that, and at least see what it's like to go through the hiring process and what they're going to do, and there was various steps that you had to take, and one thing led to another. And one of the funniest parts, though, was when they have the civil service interview. We all had to go through that after the testing, and there was a line of several other candidates at the time, and each one before me had been in there for about a half hour, and then my turn, I went in, and they introduced everybody, introduced themselves, and the very first gentleman asked me a question about why I wanted to be a police officer in South Portland, and I explained how I liked the area, the city, and the people, and I gave my answer, and he said, "Well, thank you very much for coming." And I said, "Oh, well, thank you very much for having me." And I said it was a pleasure to meet everybody, and I got up and walked out, and I was like, wow, did I just get blown off? Well, it wasn't until years later that one of the members of the board was no longer on the board, and I was driving by his house and stopped to say hello, and he was out cutting the lawn, and he said, "Oh, I got to tell you, Kevin, about when you took your test." He said, "Each of us had questions for you, because we had the same questions for each candidate." He says, "And then when so-and-so had basically dismissed you, we didn't know what to do, because you walked out, because they had been sued once before for calling a candidate back to ask them questions." And I said, "Well, there's proof it was meant to be, because somewhere along the line I probably would have screwed up if you kept asking me questions."
You didn't give them a chance.
I didn't give them a chance. I walked, so they said, "Well, he gave a good answer." So they based it on that, my test score, and then I did the physical agility, and I went on the police department, and I was a South Portland police officer for 28 years.
I imagine your time in the Coast Guard served you well, too, for that job interview.
Well, I went from active duty to the reserve, so I stayed with the Coast Guard. Yeah, so I had the training from the Coast Guard, the training from the police department, and a lot of contacts and stuff. And I used to tell everybody, I couldn't afford a boat, and this way I get to go play on one once a month. There's rookie police officer, you start out, the pay is not good. And that's why they almost kill themselves working overtime, because they're trying to make ends meet. And, yeah, so I originally was going for 30, because like I said, I grew up in the New York, New Jersey area, and a 30-year cop was known as an accomplished police officer, okay? Somebody who did 20 years and retired, he couldn't hack it, and they usually would tease him about leaving at 20 years. But as I got into year number 28, the arthritis in my knees and some of the injuries that I received, in the Coast Guard and the police department, were starting to mount. It was like I was going to need to get from here to there quicker, and the chances are I wouldn't be able to do it, and somebody could get hurt, or and I couldn't live with it. So I ended up retiring at 28 years.
That's still a good stretch, a good long stretch.
Yeah, like I say, they let me play with the lights and sirens, so I had fun at times.
I don't know if you've ever heard any stories about a former Harbormaster by the name of Phil O'Donnell.
I've heard the name, yes.
And he ended up with severe arthritis, and he called it arthritis. He gave it a name.
Yeah.
And he also gave it another name, the old man with the whiskers.
Old man with the whiskers, okay.
And what he said about it is that if you live long enough, it's going to get a hold of you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so from one Harbormaster to another.
Yeah, because what was the one the other day I heard? Pre-rigor mortis.
Oh.
I thought that was like, oh my goodness, I like that.
Well, Kevin, at some point while you were working on the police department, you got the urge to try for the legislature, the state legislature.
Yeah, when I left the police department, like I said, I had a number of things. I have a captain's license with a master mariner's endorsement and a towing endorsement. And I had a couple of jobs lined up, but with the arthritis and my knees, you'd have to climb ladders, I couldn't be a deckhand. So those jobs went by the wayside, and I was trying to figure out what to do. It was funny because, like I said, I remember I woke up one Wednesday morning and I didn't have to be anywhere. I didn't have to do anything. Nobody was coming over. I remember walking into the living room, turning the television on and saying, wow, this is cool. This will drive me nuts, but this is cool, because I've always had 2 or 3 jobs going. Even when I was on the police department, when I was on the Coast Guard, I drove limousines, I worked security, I always had something else going on the side, drove a delivery truck. And here I was now with nothing to do, and like I said, that afternoon I took a ride over to South Portland School Department and applied to be a school bus driver. I needed a driver, and I was doing that part-time, just as a sub filling in. They didn't really have any openings for a full-time position. And then I got to talking to somebody, and they said, you should run for legislator. And I thought, yeah, it'll be interesting. And so what I did one morning was a Sunday morning. I called both the listed numbers for the head of the Democrats and the head of the Republicans. So I figured I had to join a party. I've always been independent. I had nothing against the different parties, but I figured, okay, I'm getting into a total field. It's totally different, and I could very easily make a mistake. And I could see them saying, well, he didn't mean anything wrong. He just made a mistake. I could, basically hear him in the back of my mind say, well, he was a police officer. He should have known better. So they would have made an example of me. And it was the Republican Party that returned my call. And so I ended up running for legislator, District 33, as a Republican. And
which section of South Portland is that, Kevin?
It was primarily the west side, back then it was covering from Main Street out to Red Bank.
Would Thornton Heights be included?
Thornton Heights, well, the southbound side of Thornton Heights. and down at Sunset Park area, Red Bank, Old English Village, Country Gardens where I live, and you know, the area near the golf course, between the golf course and the mall, I guess you could say. And but I noticed that I was having a number of issues with some people who like I said, I was not by far not a hardcore Republican, and you know, I've always been, like I said, as an independent, but there were people that I found that didn't, they felt they kind of intimidated for trying to contact, you know, they have issues. And because I was a Republican, but my second time I ran as an independent. You know, I got reelected.
And you were elected under both labels, first as a Republican, then as an independent.
Independent, and I was, like I said, I have nothing against either party. It just wasn't comfortable one way or another. And I found being an independent. And I've caucused with the Democrats, and I've caucused with the Republicans many a time on both sides. They would give you more solid information because they'd want you to vote on a certain bill, and it's sad in a way with the way it's portrayed, because there's a lot that gets accomplished. There is a lot that everybody works on. Okay, a lot of really dedicated, caring people, and you don't hear about them. You know, unfortunately, most times you hear about either the screw-ups or the loudmouths, you know, and it's, you know, there were times I would sit there and go to one of the caucuses or a presentation on a bill, okay, and then I'd go home and, you know, turn the TV on, and they'd be talking about, and I'd be, okay, where did they come up with that? You sat next to me. And they have a different story than, you know, or they would have the little tidbit of it as opposed to the whole story. And, you know, I always thought that was, you know, a shame. And it's like
didn't recognize it when you saw it.
Yeah, it was like, wow, where was I? I sat right there, you know, in the front row. But they had, it was, like I said, it was very interesting. I enjoyed it. And then the position for Harbormaster full-time came available, so I jumped at that and took the full-time position. When
you were legislator, did you carpool with anybody up to Augusta, or did you just go up and back on your own?
I pretty much went up and got back on my own because I'm a smoker.
Oh.
And there are very few smokers up there at that time.
Right.
Probably still is. Worst thing I ever did was getting addicted on the cigarettes, and I have you know, I've been smoking, you know. I think the biggest push, though, was when I was in boot camp, okay? Because you'd be working or hunting or doing whatever that they had you doing, okay? And then you'd hear, smokers, take a break. And they'd be giving a 15-minute break, okay? And the other guys would be, so it wasn't long after a while, it's like, okay, because I had tried it in college, and I had, would sit there and initially, you know, just stand, maybe take a couple of puffs off a cigarette, but at least you didn't, you know, you got the break. And then, of course, you know, the cadre would be looking at you. I don't see you smoking, Battle. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, when you heard this opportunity coming up for Harbormaster, was that for the deputy Harbormaster or the full?
No, in 2004, I was on the police department, and I was actually driving through the parking lot there at SMCC. And it was a February because the wind was blowing, the snow was blowing, and it was a very cold day when this car pulled into the parking lot on the other side and started driving, you know, right up to me. And as he got closer, all of a sudden he had the wigwags on and pulled up alongside and introduced himself. His name was Eric Pierce, and he was the Harbormaster at the time. And Eric was looking for a deputy that had both, you know, experiences with maritime, federal law, and the state of Maine and local municipal. And I said he'd been asking around, and my name had been mentioned by several people. He said, "Yeah, I ought to check Battle. He might be interested in that. He just left the reserves." And he pulled up and asked me if I'd be interested in being a deputy harbormaster, being his deputy. And I was like, yeah, sure. And so I started out as the deputy. And
how many years did you stay in that position?
well, from around 2004 to 2015, I was the deputy. And then from 2015, the position came available when Jeff Leake, who was the harbormaster then, had left, and I put in for the position, and I got it in 2015, and now here it is, 2025, and
yes.
November, I'm pretty much done. I'm going to be retiring.
Really?
Yep.
Have you announced that already?
Oh yeah, everybody.
Because now a whole bunch of people are going to hear it.
Yes, so. I'm leaving. There'll be some parties for sure. He's leaving, yeah.
Well, maybe you didn't get the full 30 years in as the police officer, but you got a full 10 years in as the harbormaster.
Oh, yeah.
Then added to how many years as deputy?
10 years.
Yeah.
I was, basically the
That's
deputy for 10 and the harbormaster for 10. And it's, yeah, I have 2 new boats coming, one at the end of this month and then 1 month after that. And so I said, it's been a process to get the new boats because of going through the grant process and then the delays out of DC for the grants that they put freezers on and getting through all that. And so everything right now is looking good. They're in the final stages, and
leaving it in good condition.
Yeah, so that way we'll have have 2 boats. They'll be outfitted and make sure they have everything they need. They're coming in. These are boats that are specifically thought of as harbormaster, what we do in Portland, not just going out buying a boat and trying to convert it. I mean, it has the aft station and the lights and the easy access from the water and stuff like that. Like I tell people, so I don't drive the ships, pilot the boats, or sail the yachts, but my job is primarily to make sure that those that do it properly.
How many times, Kevin, does a ship coming into Portland have to take a pilot on board, or leaving for that matter?
Any vessel that's draws over 9 feet is required to have a pilot. That's by state law. Each state is different, and if it's a vessel of foreign registry, then it's required to have a pilot. A pilot is a local captain who has a lot of local knowledge. They know the currents, they know the sea conditions to be expected, the state of the tides, and they know generally, where the general public is going to be operating boats. So they know places that, somebody who's never been to Portland Harbor, things could go wrong very quickly, and that's why they have pilots. And here we actually have 2. We have what's called sea pilots, which are the pilots that take the vessel from sea, bring it to the entrance to the harbor. And then we have docking masters, or docking pilots, which then take the vessel. They work with the tugboats and put the ship to where it has to go. And
were you in that line of business when the Tamano event happened in Portland, when the ship crashed into the old $1 million bridge?
The Julian.
The Julia.
Yeah, Julian. I was on Commercial Street. I just dropped the guy off at Cumberland County Jail, prisoner. And I was on Commercial Street, just come through the circle back then and gone down the hill, little hill, and heard this crash. And I'm looking around like, wow, I don't know what hit. And I looked over, because I was going to go to the police station to have my lunch. And my first thought is, okay, I'm not going that way, because you could see the cement cloud from the ship hitting the bridge, and notified the station. And one thing led to another, and I ended up spending the rest of that day at Broadway and Lincoln. No, excuse me, Main Street in Lincoln.
Directing traffic?
Directing traffic, because they try to keep the traffic flow going, because it was all backed up.
Wow. How long was the bridge closed at that time? Do you remember? Good.
No, I don't remember how long.
That was quite a disaster.
Yeah, that was quite a environmental mishap. Just my understanding, a miscommunication, and luckily there was nobody hurt from it. It was quite the environmental.
Kevin, we're going to take a big twist now, and we're going to talk about your Irish connections and talk. If you don't mind me asking, what is the very earliest memory you have as a child?
Wow. Earliest memory I have as a child. Nope, can't tell you that one. Nope, shouldn't tell you that one. I'm working down the list.
Any memories from Ireland, or your first memories from
No, the only thing I knew, my parents that adopted me, okay, they're with the Battles. My father was 5'7", and he was one of the tallest of the Battles. My mother, they have a picture of me when I was first adopted holding my mother's hand, okay? And then they have a picture of me when I graduated high school, reaching down, holding my mother's hand. My adopted mother was, what was she, 5'8", 5'7", or something like that? 4'8", that makes more sense, yeah.
Oh, 4 foot.
4 foot,
So
4'6", 4'7", that's what it was. Yeah, she was actually a petite lady. And
first names, Kevin, if I could use it, the first names of the parents?
My father was, raised me, was Dominic J.
Yeah.
And my mother was Kathleen with a K, A.
And so your earliest memories would be in Brooklyn?
Yeah, I guess the earliest memory is running into a room and picking up a ball. And that would be the day I was brought home to their house. They had given me this red ball. This great, big, huge red ball, which is actually about that size. I still have it.
Yes.
And it has written on the date, November, I think it was November 6, 1960, when I was adopted.
What were they told?
What I was told it was never hidden from me that I was adopted. I was told that my mother was not able to properly care for me, and she knew that they could, and that's
Things
why
would be better.
Would be better for and put up for adoption. And I always had a roof, a bed. My father was a carpenter, a cabinet maker. I can't even hammer a nail in straight, but he used to do phenomenal woodwork, very impressive woodwork. And like I said, he tried showing me, and it never went well.
Were there any other children at home, Kevin?
Well, what happened is, and I got a kick out of it, somebody had labeled it a few years ago, I'd never heard it, I said, I was a replacement child. Parents had a young boy, and he died shortly after birth, okay? And she was told that they couldn't have any more children. And so that's why they went with the adoption list, okay? And then, shortly after that, I guess a year after I was adopted, she got pregnant, and I had a sister named Maureen. And she always had bright red hair, Maureen Battle. She passed away 3 years ago, but she, like any other sister, we fought like heck.
Yeah. Did your mother or father have Irish roots?
Yeah, they were both from Ireland. He was from Mayo, south of Sligo, and she was from Donegal.
Oh, so both from the Northwest.
Yeah, so from the Northwest, yep. And I'd been over there, and I went, right after I graduated high school, I ended up going to a local college called Morristown Community College. I had joined a fraternity, Alpha Omega, and made a real good friend named Paul DiMaggio, okay? Paul was a 350-pound Sicilian, okay? but he loved Irish music. And we were talking one day and about going to Ireland, and we said, yep, we're going to do it. So Paul and I did it. And the only way my parents would agree to it was if my mother went, because she said we'd get into trouble if the two of us went by ourselves. And it was like, hey, why not? And we had a good time. Paul, we walked into clubs and stuff, and actually there were places where the band stopped playing and people would turn around and look. And,
two big Yanks.
And two big Yanks. And initially that's what we thought it was because of Paul, but then I found out from one of the places they stopped because they thought I was into sports, and I was thin and trim and built, and always had fairly short hair. And a lot of them, thought I was maybe, a British soldier at the time. So a lot of them stopped. In fact, there was one time I went to the men's room, and some guys come in behind me, and one makes the comment about they don't like the Brits drinking in the bar. And I realized, okay, he's talking to me because I'm the only other one in here. And I said, I'm not a Brit, I'm a Yank on holiday. And I got my passport in my pocket. And I think I took it out and waved it at him. And I wanted nothing to do with the guy. I washed my hands and started to head out the door. No. I said, let me go first. He says, because if you go out there, he says, you're going to get hurt. And I was like, okay, he's serious. And he walked out and kind of got the place's attention. He said, they're Yanks on holiday. And everyone's, oh, hey. They started clapping and cheering and stuff like that. And which was great, because Paul and I drank for free the rest of the night.
Now, you said that, you knew you were adopted. Did you know of your Irish roots?
Well, I'd always been curious. Like I said, I wanted to do was, I'd like to meet my mother and let her know that I turned out okay. I was not a rapist or a murderer or a thief or whatever. And so I started looking into it, probably more seriously around in high school and stuff like that. And I got the paperwork from the Sean Ross Abbey, and I said, just some things didn't seem to line up, and I couldn't get all the information that I was looking for. Sister Hildegard was the one that I had spoke to. I mean, it seems like most of the Ross Abbey kids that contacted the Abbey were put through to her, so she was the one that had the answers. And she had told me that my mother was a tall, thin lady, and probably a nurse by now, because she was really interested in nursing. But things just didn't quite click. And then, I would say probably it was around 2015. My wife buys me this Ancestry DNA kit. Okay, and I was like, oh, wow, that's great. And I was thinking, okay, fine. And put it on a shelf. I says, I couldn't see the sense of doing that. I know I'm Irish. I was born in Ireland, And so then one day she asked me about it. She says, you're going to do this test, this thing I bought this for. Oh, no, I'll do it right now. And then we went through the directions, filled it out, and sent it in. Didn't think much about it afterwards. And then my wife got diagnosed with a breast cancer, and we had to deal with that. And it was a Thursday. She was supposed to meet with her oncologist and all the doctors, and they were going to have this big meeting. They have a name for it, and I've run a complete blank on what it's called, but they get them all together and explain to the patient what they're going to go through. The oncologist has the flu, so they got to reschedule. My wife doesn't handle last-minute changes well. So she is bumming. This is a bad sign. This is this is that. Okay, and she's just closing in on herself. And of course, I'm trying to, hey, let's go away for the weekend. We'll do something we've never done before. I don't know. We'll, go to Vegas. We'll go to Florida. Go to Disney. We'll can't really afford either of those. We'll, I don't know, go to the mall. But we'll do something. And after a while, it was kind of like, okay, I'll shut up now because all I'm going to do is get her really mad. Okay, and annoy her. So I sat down on the computer and I opened up the computer, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, look, I got a reply from your Ancestry DNA. Okay. Well, zoom, zoom. She's out of the chair and runs across the room and is sitting next to me all like, well, open it, open it, open it. She's all excited. I'm like, oh, my goodness. And so we open it, and it, it says that I'm 98% Irish. Or excuse me, 95% Irish. Okay. 3% Scotch Welsh. Okay. 1% Polynesian. Don't know how he got in there. Some sailor had a weekend. So that's what the Ancestry, and she's like pointing at the thing, and she says, what's this matches? What's this matches? And I said, I have no idea. And I click on the matches, and all these names pop up. Okay, and they say, first cousin, second cousin, third cousin, but there are no names that I recognize. Okay, and because I'm thinking battle family lineage, and so I, clicking on one. Her name was Lisa Hay from Wales, and she's a first cousin, the first cousin, and there's a little message box. So I figured, oh, well, realized, okay, that her being first cousin would mean her mom and dad would have been a brother or sister to my mom and dad. To which my wife replied, no shit, Sherlock.
Yes.
I was like, okay.
Very close.
Yep. So I typed a simple message, hi, how are you? I'm Kevin. I'm new here, and according to this thing, we're related. And her reply is, don't know you, don't know your name, and don't know why you're now on my list. And I said, well, sent a reply. I said, hi. I said, as far as I know, I was born in the Sean Ross Abbey. My mother's name was Kathleen Sheedy, S-H-E-E-D-Y, and I was put up for adoption when I was young. Her reply back was, don't know none of this, might ask Nam. She signs off. It's like, well, okay. Irish aren't much for words, so usually. So I figured that was it, and then we sat there and we explored the thing. And now here comes Friday, and I wanted to make sure I got home before Kathy because I thought she was really going to have a tough day of it, right? Mm-hmm. I had just got to the door and opened the door when she pulled in, and she's literally jumping out of the car. Have you heard from that lady yet? Have you heard from that lady yet? And I was like, no. I said, wait. I haven't even got in the house yet, and stuff. I said, well, get in and get the computer on. And she was in the kitchen, and she had the laptop in the living room, and turn it on, and it comes up, and I go to the Ancestry site, and I said, oh, that lady's on. Well, she come running right into the room and say something. And I'm like, I'm not sure what to say. I don't want to scare her away. I mean, this is a good lead. I mean, I've had doors closed in my face. I went over to Ireland. I went to Sean Ross Abbey. I knocked on the door there, and I said, hi, I'm Kevin, and I was born here. And the lady, she may have been a nun, said, you're not welcome here, don't come back, and slammed the door. And I stood there with the door closed, slammed in front of me, and thinking to myself, wow. And I kind of shrugged it off, but that really sat kind of heavy in the back of my mind for years. Like I said, so I didn't want to lose this contact because, she had a lot of potential there. So we're sitting there trying to figure out what to say, and all of a sudden, the screen popped up, and it said, "Hi, Kevin. We know about you." Well, the hairs on the back of I must have read it about 10 or 15 times. "We know about you." The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I'm like, a chill went right down. I'm like, oh my God, and I said it to Kathy. She's like, then the next message was, "What is your phone number? Too much info to write." And of course, you're not supposed to give your number out over the internet. And then I'm thinking to myself, stupid, give her the phone number, you know. I no sooner sent it than the phone rang. And you could tell it was a out-of-country call because of the twin rings or dual rings or whatever they call it. And it was Elisa Hay, a very nice lady, and she said she had spoke to Nam. Nam being, in Wales, is what they call the grandmother, or her family does. And she tells me right from the get-go that your mother's name was not Kathleen Sheedy. It was actually a Catherine Sheehy, S-H-E-E-H-Y. And it was funny because I remember how in one of the papers that I have gotten from the Dublin Hall of Records, and it's the letter that a mother would submit when she puts her child up for adoption. And it'd been altered. Okay, it was her name, but instead of Sheehy, they had blocked out the last two letters and wrote D-Y several times. It was witness sealed by a bishop. It says Bishop so-and-so, but my mother never signed the letter, and I have the actual letter. So she said, like I said, "We know about you." Your mother's actual name was Catherine Sheehy. And she said, "Well, I'm going to tell you straight up, this is, she passed away in 2009. And I kind of expected that by now, because, you know, because of age and whatnot. She said, "But you do have 2 brothers and 3 sisters living in Wales." And I'm like, "I have brothers and sisters." And she said, "Yeah, pretty much in the Pembroke and Tenby area." And I checked. So she said she was going to check with my one brother, Bernard, because he lived right near her and would pass on my information. And she gave me their email addresses, and one thing led to another, and then I found out a little bit more of a backstory. Okay, according to what Lisa had found out and others, that I wasn't put up for adoption, but I was taken from my mother and basically sold for adoption.
Absolutely against her will.
Yep. The way they described it is where they lived in like a one-room, two-room house. Athea is the town that actually they were, and the house is on the outskirts away from, they were basically subsistence farmers. They lived off of whatever they grew, and there was not very much work other than work the fields for the neighboring farms, and they had very small plot of land. And one day, I guess there's three cars suddenly pull up to the house, and this was in 1960. There weren't a whole lot of cars, but you had the nuns and the Gardaí, the local Irish police, and they had they had kicked the door open to go into the house, and I was told that they had forcefully taken me from my mother. This was by the one that Lisa was calling Nam. She had heard the story, and she was a little older than me, and she remembers something, but she couldn't remember quite what. And when that story came out, I was told that the church, was going to try to stifle that and stuff. And I said, there have been a lot of issues brought up from Ross Cray kids, that things that happened to them by the church, and it always would be squelched. And I said, well, tell them to bring it on, because at that time I was a retired Coast Guardsman, a retired police officer, and a state legislator. I'd never been arrested, was not an alcoholic, or they couldn't turn around and, and badmouth me. And so when my story came out over in Ireland, I was told basically it went viral. It was very big news over there. And this started some serious investigations. And I guess somebody who has the authority or whatever over the Gardaí assigned a couple of detectives to go and check on some of these, so what they had discredited or claimed stories. And they found that there was a good number of atrocities that were actually committed by the nuns. There's no saying absolute power corrupts absolutely, and I think they did a lot of what they did with the best of meaning and the times, but a lot of it was definitely wrong.
Kevin, it's just a pure coincidence, but I arrived in Galway, Salt Hill, Galway, the very day that your story was reported.
Oh.
There. And I stayed in a B&B in Salt Hill, and when I signed in as Michael Connolly, PortlandMaine, the owner of the B&B said, "You must know Kevin Battle." And I had heard of your story at that point, yeah, but we had never met. And so I said, "I know of Kevin, but we've not met yet, but we will be meeting when I go back home." But essentially the story that was reported here in the Portland Press Herald was taken almost word for word over there in the Connaught Tribune.
Yeah.
And that's how everybody knew about it, even before I did.
Yeah. If you Google my name, or the Ballad of Kevin Battle, which I found it's interesting, hard to say, but there's actually a songwriter in Australia who read the article, read the story, sat down and wrote a ballad and released it in Australia about the story. So it was like the story went worldwide. Like I said, I have nothing. I got no ill will, no sour grapes. I mean, life happens for a reason. If I had stayed there with my mother, okay, the chances are I wouldn't be alive now. Primarily in the most common way or denominator, or whatever you want to call it. When I was 7, I had a ruptured appendix. Okay, it was fast onset and ruptured quickly, and had to go through some major surgery for it. If I was living in Latvia, I don't think they would have had the right medical. As it was, where I lived in New Jersey, we were 5 minutes from Overlook Hospital, which is the primary juvenile care facility in New Jersey. It was a quick ambulance ride, and they stuck a needle in me, and I woke up, I was told 2 days later. And
your family, Kevin, here, are they still alive, or?
No, my father passed away around 2014, and her around 2017. He passed away at 92, and she was 94.
92 and 94,
so
wow.
I wish I was directly related. They got good genes.
Yes.
But, like I said, to me, those were mom and dad, and then I call my mother, my birth mother or whatever that raised me, that gave birth to me, Mum. there's a difference. But like I said, what I wanted to do was, like I said, I wanted to meet her and show that I was a good kid. But so when I went to Wales, I met my brother Anthony, and I stayed at his house for the week, and I got to meet the other brothers and sisters. And he took me to the grave site, so at least I got to have my say at her grave site. And,
can you tell the story about the roses?
The roses. Well, there's she really liked this yellow rose that they have there. I can't think of the name of it, but it's a small yellow rose, and they had decided they were going to put 5 roses, for her children on the gravesite, and so we, one for Bernard, Anthony, Tina, Tanya, and Brady, are the names. And they got to talking, and when she passed away, she had made her husband Patrick promise to tell them about me, that she'd had another son, and beforehand, and so the tombstone has the six roses.
That must have made quite an impression on you when you realized that.
Yes, and then now we have to try to figure out, it came up in conversation what they're going to do, because I found out that I'm not the first. She actually had a son way before me named Michael.
Oh my goodness.
And
life has...
Yeah, so he's out in Arizona, in Surprise, Arizona. So,
is that true? It is really in Surprise?
That's the name of the town, Surprise. And what was it? My wife had read it, looked it up. They didn't think the town would ever... it was a very desolate area at the time. It was a very parched area, and didn't see a town being settled and stayed there. So when they went to fill out the paperwork, I guess, to make it official, they called it Surprise, and it stuck.
Well, Kevin, you've told us some incredible stories today, but that last one was a surprise to me. I had never heard of that. And the thing that I take most away from that is your optimism and the way that you have the map of Ireland on your face, first of all. I'm sure you've been told that a million times.
Yeah.
But the way that you decided that you were going to make this into a positive thing. And that's all the time that we have for today, but you were very generous in sharing it, and we all thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you very much for having me, and all the best.
All the best.